three game developers drinking good Arab tea. I'm your host for today, Fawzi Mesmar.
And I'm Osama Rami.
And I'm Rami Ismail.
Well, look at that.
Look
The
at that.
three of us. Back
Three.
again. Back again in our business.
And this time it's not like Osama and me and Fawzi is also there. No, this time.
Yeah.
This time it's full three Habibis. Actually, I think this is going to have to be a Fawzi episode, Fawzi.
We have to make up for the last one where he was
You
also
had
there.
a week.
Now you know why I was so tired.
You had a week. Wow.
Yep.
What
Tell
you
us
guys
all
think?
about it.
It feels like another E3, right? Like we got
Yeah.
the Ubisoft Forward happening a couple of days ago from the time of recording this.
Yes.
We just watched Nintendo Direct.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
Later
there's
tonight, the PlayStation thing.
a PlayStation thing later tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like a fall E3. There's two of them now.
So was this on purpose? Did all these companies come together and were like, "Hey, this is the week"?
I don't
Who
think
knows,
so.
man?
I think in general everybody is just getting ready for like end of year season.
Yeah.
And 3 months tends to be a pretty good amount of time to sort of like set everything up for that. So
Your explanation makes sense, but I like mine better.
yours is better. That there's a secret cabal.
Yeah.
There's a secret.
I mean, between Ubi and Nintendo, I believe it
yeah.
because they're working together on some stuff. But
Yeah.
That's pretty true.
maybe Ubisoft is secretly the leader of this whole thing.
No, we all know it's Gabe. If there was a secret cabal, it'll be Gabe leading it.
Yeah. No
Or some
surprises.
kind of
there.
like secret ruins somewhere.
But okay, I need to. What is it like? What's the opposite of rant? I need to gush about Mirage.
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely.
What did you guys think? There's a lot of Arabic in that game.
Yes.
I checked all of it frame by frame.
Woo, we passed that one.
Yep. And I was like,
I'm
well,
super excited for it.
let's
Like,
see if
it's
this
a
has
dream
to be
come true.
embarrassing. But nope.
How about that logo?
Yeah, that logo is absolutely amazing. I'm gonna order a shirt with it on it. I'm just trying to decide t-shirt, hoodie, or both. Probably both.
both.
Yeah, I was browsing the hoodies myself. Like, oh, I should have more hoodies.
I don't even wear hoodies, but I'm buying these one.
You gonna frame it, put it on the wall?
It's just so good. Like just
It is.
like the idea of doing the Assassin's Creed logo as Arabic script calligraphy is just
Yes. And then the execution was so good.
so subtle.
Yes.
By the very talented Hatem Arafa, who is also Egyptian, by the way, Egyptian
Oh.
calligrapher.
That I mean, just incredible work. Like, who would have thought? You know, like Ibrahim Hamdi, who did the logo for the Habibis, is partially known for redoing game logos in Arabic, right? On this one, he's not going to have work because it's already done. We're good. It's incredible. It's beautiful. It's so well done, and all there was more advanced calligraphy as well. I remember.
It was so cool to see some of the fans unearthed it, though. Like a calligraphy shaped snake, scorpion, and a bunch of other animals, and like Arabic calligraphy style.
I really, even with the sentence like deciphered from the images, I could not read it. It was so well done.
It was.
Truly,
I
a
had
little
to put
puzzle.
them side by side to be able to see it.
Right.
So perfect.
Also, just like what a beautiful rendition of the setting.
Yeah, absolutely. You could tell there was a lot of attention to detail, a lot of love in that.
It's Baghdad, baby.
Yeah, I know.
But Baghdad,
Baghdad.
you know, when I see it in video games, it normally doesn't look like this.
No, right?
Normally it looks a little different.
A little bit different.
No,
Yeah.
but like what an incredible time as well to set the game and what an incredible setting. Like, you know, like Baghdad as a city has a remarkable history with both a lot of parts that are really well known and then a lot of parts that are also not super well known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that for Assassin's Creed, that's like a playground.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do, right? And like so many historical figures that you can interact with in that kind of setting. So yeah, that'll be awesome.
If I can't manage a day zero purchase, it'll be at least a day one purchase. That's for sure.
Wow, that's cool. It's just so cool to hear like the reception has been so positive. And especially because it's like a return to root style game. Like, it's not a lengthy RPG like the other ones. This is like a more classic Assassin's Creed experience. The reception has been very positive.
Yeah, I just want to get lost in Baghdad.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I mean, I've been a huge Assassin's Creed fan since the beginning, but I will say I've been sort of falling off the Assassin's Creed bandwagon just because those games are so much nowadays. And I think I read an interview with you, Fawzi, where we were talking about how you're aiming for the games to be more focused again, or for in general, sort of the slate of games to be more focused. And I think that's exactly what gaming needs right now, is just games that dare to be good at a thing.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to be a little bit of everything.
Exactly. Like, one game can't have it all, right? So we got to make the choices that fits the type of people you're making the game with and just commit to that. Yep. And that means that, like the people that you are making the game for, it'll be exactly for them and they'll be happier. And that's fine. Like that's, it's making those decisions and make sure that you deliver through on them. I think it just makes more focused and better games as a result.
Exactly. That's like basic part of game design theory, is that you can't make a game that pleases everyone because of different elements. There are different player types. And different elements of games appeal and don't appeal to the same player type. So it's just impossible. So like you said, find your target audience and just make sure you appeal to them. And the same franchise can have different games that appeals to different target audiences. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Exactly. And in the same franchise, like in the same announcement, like the way we have like this game that's coming out for like a classic Assassin's Creed smaller experience that is not 100+ hour RPG, but there's also like that kind of game on the way in feudal Japan that was just announced as well. So there's room for all kinds of different experiences within a franchise, where you can make like the type of game that fits the different type of audience. And
yeah, I'm really excited for that one too. Is that the code name
Project Red?
Yeah, I am super excited about that one as well. I mean, as y'all know, Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite games of 2020, maybe my favorite game of 2020, and it had a lot of clear inspirations from the Assassin's Creed formula. So I'm really curious to see how something like the same setting or a similar setting is going to work out in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
I have high expectations.
Have you guys played the Origins when it came out?
Yes, I did. I liked Origins.
Yeah, I'm now replaying it. Like, I got so hyped over the Assassin's Creed week, and the Origins was on Game Pass, and I was just, I'm going to check it out, replay it, basically. And, like the Rami was saying about like how Baghdad was never like, interpreted this way. It was super cool. Also, like, I'm wandering the streets of Alexandria and how that's interpreted in that game. As like this, like, this is an amazing city. I want to live there now. Like it'll be amazing if there's a city that's like that. It's lush, it's green, it's technologically advanced, there's all these buildings, there's a lot to see and walk around. So it'd be cool to see Baghdad kind of like being explored by players in that way too.
So I feel this is going to be a little controversial, but I actually really like the change to RPGs for Assassin's Creed. The last 3 have been some of my favorite Assassin's Creed.
Oh,
and every time I see the majority, I
don't think it's that controversial. Actually,
I don't know, because
a lot of players love these games.
I don't think it's controversial. I just fully disagree.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's okay to disagree, but I liked it. I thought it was fine. I think the progression system in those games was interesting. It tried something new, especially in Origin, which was the first one, because you could either pick up new weapons and do that race, or like getting a better weapon than the one before, or you could stick to your same weapon if you like the weapon style and just keep upgrading it, and you have the same weapon that you started with, just getting better and better. I loved that, like the agency that you get that gives the player, and somehow it felt balanced. Like I only had one playthrough, so I don't know for sure, but it didn't like it's good enough that I didn't feel like it wasn't working when I was switching between one or the other. So that I liked. they give clear feedback when you were too weak or too strong to fight an enemy, which was enough for me. So I would be like, okay, I'll try to defeat this one who's like 5 levels higher. And if I failed, it was fine. And if I succeeded, I was happy. Like I think they did a good job. Like it's not for everyone, I admit it, but I love those worlds. I finished all 3 games. I put in 50 plus hours in each one. The last one because it takes like 60 to beat it, so I didn't have much choice. But like, yeah, to me, I have zero complaints about the RPG elements, and the other way around, I actually like them more.
I remember I played Origins. I finished that because of Egypt. Then Odyssey, I just dropped off halfway and watched the rest, and then on Valhalla, I didn't even begin.
Wow.
I was just like, I can't do another one of these. Like, it's so much and so big and so like, I don't know. It never felt like the developers really had the content to fill the hours with. And for me, Assassin's Creed, like a large part of what I love about it is the history and the world, right? The rendition of worlds, and this is something that they've gotten right since the original one. Is that the world feels historically accurate enough, basically. But then having to go through it like 11 times, catching 6 fish to feed to somebody who then gets eaten by an alligator. It's just, yeah, okay, cool, I guess. And I never felt, this is a me problem, and I fully acknowledge this is a me problem. But if I have an RPG and it adds something to my list, it has to happen. And Assassin's Creed, like Odyssey, adds a lot to your list in like the first 30 minutes of the game. And I just looked at it and I'm like, yeah, no, I can't. I cannot.
You know what made me not do that? It was like the Bethesda games, like Skyrim. I used to be the power gamer. If you're gonna give me a thing, I'm gonna pick it up. It will go in my inventory, and I will sell it later because I don't like waste. And after like 5 minutes, I was encumbered with like plates and forks and apples or whatever. And I'm like, okay.
All the cups. All
Exactly.
The cups you can find.
Exactly. Like, okay, that's not going to work. Now I'll only pick up valuables. And even then you run out of space. Or like I'm picking up the valuable of valuables. But that actually changed the way I approached everything. Like I remember specifically, I think it was Oblivion that really, really turned it around for me. Where from that point on, I look at a quest and I'm like, that doesn't seem interesting. I'm just not going to do this. And I keep going. To the point that I've mentioned it on a previous episode, I often, if I have the option, I switch games into easy mode. And the reason I do this is because it allows me to bypass a lot of the grinding. Going straight to the content that I see as interesting, being low level, the balance kind of works out most of the time, and I'm able to get through the game faster and keep. I have a problem with not finishing games, right? I think a lot of us do, but I have it like to a point. So that allowed me to engage with it differently, and I think that's part of growing as a gamer, figuring out how you should approach games, what you like about games, and what you don't like. So I know you're still young, Rami. Give it time.
Yes, when I finally get old, I'll get back to
you. I feel like like I don't know about you guys, but I have this pressure that I have on me that I don't think it should be there, but I'd self-impose, so to say, in which like I want to play as many games as I can during the course of a year, and I want to play as many of the games that come out in the year as I can as well.
Yeah.
So like I very rarely would I play a game as a completionist. As much as I want to, like sometimes I'd be really like drawn into a game world and I want to finish everything. But then I think like, okay, if I want to finish everything, that's 30 or 40 more hours. And I need to play all these other games. And I keep stressing to myself that my mind processes need. Which is a weird way to look at the hobby. You know what I mean? It's like,
no, I'm the same, man. Like for me, it's like I play most games for like 45 minutes to an hour and then stop, and then I'm a completionist for the one that I don't stop on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very much my style. I think you, Fawzi, you play a bit more of a game. It sounds like most games you get stuck in for like 2-3 hours. Didn't you end up playing what's the game? The San Barlo game?
I played the Immortality actually.
You did?
I played maybe like 4 hours of that game.
Wow.
Something
Okay.
like that. So I
That
haven't
beats my
finished it.
1 hour.
I haven't finished it, but I played a lot of it because also I want to finish games, and I like I
Yeah.
make a point of like I put 10 to 15 hours a week to play games.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I feel like if, especially when we make games, if we don't play them, we might lose touch of the thing
Yeah.
that got us here to begin with.
Exactly.
And every time I'm playing other games, I'm so inspired and like excited, even when they don't work for me, because I go like, oh man, there's all these people doing cool stuff. And it's just inspiring to just see the industry like
Yep.
blooming and stuff happening all the time.
Yep.
So I need to make the time to play games. And that's why, like, when I get a game, I try as much as I can to at least finish it,
Right.
if I could.
So
Immortality I think, is one of those games that I will end up finishing. I think like I'm gonna put an hour or so this evening. I think that'll be that. It's an interesting game. You guys played it, right? Osama, I remember you spoke about it because you played
Yes.
it for an hour.
About an hour.
I'm skipping on it out of halal concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
those
think
are
I'm going to
valid.
go back. There's nothing really there that's pulling me back, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Maybe.
So it's the same creator of Her Story and
Right.
Telling Lies, right?
Yep.
I played both. I finished both actually, and I think like to just describe the game for people who are listening, it's like there's like a mystery of an actress that disappeared, and she made a bunch of movies, and you play as some kind of movie editor that goes through all kinds of film, and you watch clips of the movies, and then at any point you can rewind a movie or a clip, and you can see things differently if you play some clips in rewind mode. And at any point, you can freeze frame on the clip and click on a face, and it will take you to another clip that has a similar face. I say face, but it could be a person or an object. Even you can click on a cup, and it will take you to another clip that has the same cup or something like that. So that's the gameplay, and I think that's probably the biggest criticism I have towards the game. So I like the mystery and the intrigue. I like the idea that when you rewind some clips, you can see things from a different perspective. Let's say, so I don't spoil it. What I don't like is that mechanically, it's just that you're clicking on things, and the game has no way to remind you which stuff you clicked on and which stuff you didn't. So it's become an exercise of, I guess, from a gameplay point of view, it's just it feels a bit like going through the motions. Whereas, like in Telling Lies, for example, you still have to figure out keywords to search for in the software. So at least there's that part. There's this gameplay part of like, oh, I figured out the keyword, or oh, I figured this out. There is a puzzle that you figured out as a player. Whereas that, like, this game, hours in at this point, I'm just going through the clips, clicking on faces or things. So it's a bit pixel hunty.
Yeah,
so to say.
it is.
There's also the aspect of haram that that Rami was talking about. This game is I don't know if it's completely R-rated. There's nudity in this game. There's sex scenes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't mind that existing per se. Like, I don't mind sex being a topic of conversation in games generally.
It just made it difficult for me to find a time to play it as well. So,
yeah, I guess if you have kids around, that's a tricky one to
that was
play.
tricky already. So it was competing with like other time, like time I could be spending with my wife alone and that kind of thing. There's like, and I'm not saying anything like I have not given it enough of a chance in my opinion, but I did. What you were talking about, the mechanics, I felt that too. I felt like it wasn't like it didn't appeal to my tactile senses. You know what I mean? I wanted a little bit more. And the parts that I did see seemed interesting, but there was no beginning of a mystery that kept me wanting to find out more. It was too subtle at the beginning. It's like, like the thing you learned right at the beginning. So it's not a spoiler really because you learned it in the first minute, but like someone died. and that's what you're trying to figure out, I guess, who and why.
Yeah.
But you don't have an emotional attachment to this someone who died. You don't know anything about them. And so after like playing that first session for about an hour, I wasn't any closer to figuring out the mystery, and I didn't really care so much to go back. So I think they could have done even narratively a little bit better to give you a hook. Her story did a better job of that, just because you see
I
her,
think so too.
right?
Yeah.
Just that, like you're seeing her in the video right away, over and over, and you're like, okay, now I want to know her story. Her story. That's all it took. This was,
and also like it starts off with the right clip, I feel, in that game
yes,
to really put
yes,
you on the track of investigating. And
yes,
also it's because it's the same person but different settings and all of that stuff. It added to the intrigue. So I was like, oh, I wonder what the background here, I wonder what this is. And all of a sudden, like your instincts are on. You're trying to
yeah,
figure out the mystery.
yeah,
The in Immortality, it's an art house project to some extent,
yeah,
and theatrical in a lot of the ways the characters are portraying that mystery. Um, and to the point that I think it deliberately weaves between the real and the surreal in some way. Like, what is the real thing of the movies in the game, or what is what really happened in real life? And I think when that is happening also within the concept of the game, it kind of loses instead of gaining. So like
mm,
it distracts a bit more from the game's ultimate message, I found.
yeah. I have to agree with that. I still intend to go back a little bit. I just want to see something there to
Yeah,
be like, that's what everybody is liking about it, because that's the part that's intriguing to me.
yeah.
Same thing happened to me with plenty of games, like Breath of the Wild. I picked it up right away, and I
Hmm.
dropped it like right away. As soon as I saw the
Wow.
weapon system, I'm like, I didn't like it, and then people were kept talking about how good it is, and I picked it up again and I finished it twice.
Yeah.
Uh, so I fell in love with it. Elden Ring,
Elden
famously,
Ring, you almost did
I
that.
yeah, I left it 5 times. so like sometimes when the game is like popular enough, I really want to like give it another and another shot just to see. And this is in that category. I don't know when, but I'm gonna give it another try.
Yeah,
That said, it just didn't hook me. There was nothing. You mentioned Telling Lies. That's the one I didn't play. I played Her Story.
yeah.
I didn't play Telling Lies. Where do you think it fits in between these two
Uh,
games?
I think her story is still the best one. So
Okay.
I think if you and I Telling Lies is better, I think, so far than Immortality.
Okay. That's valuable.
Just
So I
because
might go back and play that
there's a
too.
bit more gameplay there. But
Yeah.
that said, I think Telling Lies is the weakest story of the three, in
Interesting.
my opinion. Like, I thought her story was the best story, and Immortality tells a better story to some extent.
Hmm.
Yeah, and wasn't a big fan of Telling Lies story wise.
Hmm. Thank you. That's
Okay.
actually helpful.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have another hour to go on Immortality or something
Hmm.
like that. I think from what I've seen online, so I probably will end up finishing it
Hmm.
Okay.
over the next couple of days. But yeah, it's I'm not sure. Like, hard for me to recommend. I think like
Mm-hmm.
of Sam's three games, her story would be the one for me.
Hmm. That's fair. Thank
Uh,
you.
Okay.
but other than games, I've watched a TV show that is based on a game,
Oh yeah.
uh, which is the new Tekken TV show
Oh,
on
how is it?
Netflix.
Is that
How
out?
is it?
It's called Tekken Bloodline, to give it the actual name of it.
It's
So
animated, right?
it's animated. So I think it's 3D animated. You know, like it feels like it was made in the Guilty Gear engine.
I see. Is it convincing in its
Very
2D-ness?
convincing.
Oh,
Very
good.
convincing in its 2Dness. Yes, but also like there are sometimes with like they do things with the camera and you see that it's 3D and you go like, oh, it's like it's like Guilty Gear all over again.
I really hope more games start making using those techniques that were in Guilty Gear to do something like that, because I was a really big fan of the art style, but
Yeah.
not so much the game itself. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's a different side. Talk about Tekken. Let's find
So
out how you liked it.
this show is based on events of Tekken 3,
Yeah.
which is probably the Tekken game I played the most in my life. I'm a
So,
Tekken fan, by the way. I played a lot of them. So
mm.
I
Tekken 3
played
is probably my favorite as well.
Your
And
favorite game?
I'm not particularly a Tekken fan. I just like fighting games in general. But
Yeah.
Tekken 3 is probably the one I played the most.
I played a lot of Tekken. So, Tekken 3 is the one I was the best at, I would have to say. Like, we played local tournaments and stuff like that when Tekken 3 was on.
Mm-hmm.
I played a lot of Tekken 4, a lot of Tekken 5, skipped 6 completely, and came back to 7.
You didn't play the brawler mode in 6?
No. I
That
didn't
was
play
interesting.
anything in 6.
Okay.
Like, I think I skipped it entirely.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't play any of the tag games. So that's my history with the franchise. But at Tekken 2, I played a lot, and Tekken 1 was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was.
For me.
Absolutely was.
And it's super cool because I have a very good friend whose first game was Tekken 2. And by first game, I mean the first game he worked on.
Yep.
So we had a lot of conversations about the inception of Tekken as a franchise and all of this.
That's amazing.
We can talk about that at some point, but just like a quick anecdote that I find very interesting. The series started when a lot of people left Sega and moved over to Namco Bandai back in the 90s. And the people that left Sega were on the Virtual Fighter team. So a lot of the 3D fighting movement kind of started by a lot of the same people. Yeah. Which I find fascinating.
It's the same thing happened with like Street Fighter and King of Fighters and Fatal Fury and all those. Like the same people who worked on Street Fighter 2 went on to SNK and made Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury. So it's fascinating how you see that DNA where
because they got that know-how of animation blending to button presses and like that the different approach towards fighting game. It was like maybe we should make a fighting game and that doesn't have fireballs and super moves in that way. So back to the show. Tekken Bloodline tells the story of Tekken 3, which is a very convoluted story if you've been watching the game in the series, which involves Heihachi throwing Kazuya in a volcano, then Kazuya coming back, making a deal with the devil, and all kinds of weird, from the intro movies of those games. The story feels wild. There's always somebody climbing out of a volcano, it feels, at the beginning of those first 3 games. So, there's a bunch of people being thrown in the volcano in this one, which is, great.
Very accurate.
And it follows Jin Kazama. So this is the story of Jin, his mother June, and Heihachi being weird, bad but good, but mostly bad. And that's everybody showing up, your favorite characters. There'll be King, Paul, Hwarang, Ling Xiaoyu, and Ogre.
That's exciting. I can't wait to watch it. So do you recommend it overall?
If you've never played Tekken, are not interested in the game series at all, you will watch it and you probably think to yourself, what did I just watch?
Why do they keep throwing people in volcanoes?
What's going on? There's probably a question you'll ask yourself quite a bit.
Yeah.
But if you just at some point were at a friend's place and mashed buttons playing Eddie, there's a lot of nostalgia in this show to keep you going. It's not a long show. I think it's 6 episodes.
I'm adding it to my list. I'm excited.
It's a Rami-sized show in which, Rami doesn't want to watch long shows. They were just, small enough to enjoy.
Well, 6 episodes, 6 20-minute episodes, that's pretty much a movie, which is good enough.
Yeah. Exactly. It's fun. And especially if you, enjoy Tekken at some point, it's for you. Watch Heihachi throwing people in the volcano.
I can't wait. It's exciting.
Yeah. But that was me. I managed to watch a show and play a video game, which is way more than I thought I'd be able to do with a week like I had last week.
Yeah, I don't know how you get any of that done.
There's time on flights and late nights at the hotel room when you want to disconnect,
Fair
Absolutely.
enough.
Yeah. What about you guys? Who wants to go first?
Are we playing rock, paper, scissors?
I'll go first.
I'm the host. I'm the host.
Fawzi is going to say.
Thank you. I'll take it.
Oh, come on. If you're just going to agree with Osama, why would you claim this is like a weird power play, Fawzi?
He sounded so powerful. I was scared.
Okay, I understand that.
It's more that
he's very intimidating.
Speaking of things that Fawzi did and recommended somewhat, that I picked up on because I added to my list.
Did you watch it because Fawzi was intimidating?
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
I played Trek to Yomi.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the Japanese like Kurosawa inspired 2D fighting game, side scroller. It's kind of hard to, like, there's two
how many
modes.
words are we going to use?
It's because it's like 2.5D for the combat parts, but it's actually kind of like not you have free movements for the not combat part, so it's kind of it defies genres in some ways, right? So
if this was pitch practice, you would get a feel from me. I have no idea what we're talking about.
It's a weird kind of platformer game where you fight a lot. It's kind of a cross between a fighting game and a action adventure in a way. But like, it's black and white completely. It has a lot of style. And this is the interesting thing about it, is that I instantly loved it at the beginning. I'm like, wow, I love the sound design. I love the visual design. I love the setting. Really like the combat mechanics. And then I was like, this is going to be one of my favorite games that I played this year. That was my starting impression. And then as I played, it was just more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. And I quickly lost interest, which is sad because it had such a strong start to me, but it remained the same throughout in so many different ways. Like it introduced a few new combat mechanics, but you didn't really need them. You were able to just kind of, the first few things you learned got you through most of the fight. I played it for 2 or 3 hours, by the way. I think I'm halfway through. The emotional curve is flat. It's like, it starts off a little bit like, cool, you're training, you're gonna be a cool samurai, and then bad things happen, and then more bad things happen, and then more bad things happen, and the entire rest of the game that I've seen so far is just bad things are happening, and that's not a good emotional curve, because you don't, even when you succeed, you don't feel like you succeeded, you just feel like more bad things are happening, and that is kind of like the metaphor for the game. It's the strong start and then maintain the rest of the way, which I thought was really a shame. I think there's a lot of potential. I think the team pulled off a lot of things. The combat was simple but well executed. The art style was really cool. Like a lot of the details, like the sound effects and the music, really sounded like it was an old Japanese movie. It was very nostalgic without being nostalgic, because you haven't played the actual game. Everything was good, and then they just kept it the same for too long until I was like, I'm just going to go see more of the same. I don't know if that was your impression, Fawzi, but that was mine. After a couple of hours of it, I'm like, I feel like I've seen it all.
Yeah, when we spoke about it, I think that was some time ago. Yeah, I got a very similar impression. It's cool to get to see that that aesthetic in living that way.
Yeah,
but it like that spark to keep it going in that way.
Agreed. So yeah, there was that. The other game that I played is called Noita.
Noita.
Yeah,
Petri Purho's game.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I don't know who the developer is, but yeah, it was pretty cool. The way I would describe it is, what if you took Terraria, but instead of like the 2D voxels, if you will, like the cubes, instead you had pixels. That's pretty much what the game is. Everything, instead of like you're mining a cube or you're breaking this cube, you're just like affecting, everything is kind of like a set of pixels that interact with each other based on rough rules of physics. So if you burn a little thing over here, the fire will spread to these pixels and only those pixels, and if you put it out, then it'll form a smooth, like circular surface where those pixels were burned before. So if you don't know, actually, maybe I should start by explaining what the game is, because I said it's like Terraria, and then I moved on. So it's kind of like a procedurally generated dungeon crawler, kind of like Terraria, where you're like, you have this wizard who shoots spells, and you could collect items and destroy enemies, and you're digging deeper into these dungeons. So in that way, it's very similar to Terraria. And then, like I said, if you replace the cubes with pixels, so everything is a little more chaotic, like less controlled. You don't know exactly how it's going to pan out, and then you just have those systemic rules of water does this, fire does that, electricity does that, that kind of thing thrown in. It's a fun time if you like that sort of thing. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it. It's not like I didn't think it was revolutionary or game changing. It was a cool experiment.
You're playing it on a Steam Deck as well?
Yes. Actually, no. I bought it on Steam to play it on my Steam Deck, but for whatever reason, it's not appearing on my Steam Deck, so I actually played it on PC.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if it's actually mean that this is the first game that I bought with the intent to play it on my Steam Deck. I bought it from my Steam Deck, but then I had to go on the PC to install it again and play it.
Huh, that's weird. It should be on your Steam Deck.
I think it's a bug or something, but I don't see it.
Or does it have a Linux build?
Maybe.
If it doesn't have a Linux build, it won't show up on your Steam Deck.
So maybe that's why. I'll have to investigate. I didn't care enough to. I just was like, whatever. I'll just go play it over here, and I played it over there.
I really like Noita.
It's, cool.
Yeah, no, I mean the team behind it is a superstar team. It's Petri Purho, who did Crayon Physics.
Yeah.
Oli Hariola, who did the Swapper, if you remember that one.
Which I remember
that one. It was super good. And then Arvi Taikari, who you might know as Hempoli, who did Baba Ju.
And Baba Ju is wonderful.
So it's the three of them. I think they started a studio, and I think even the studio was called, I think it was Nolla. And then the engine that they made it in was called like Falling Everything. Because like Osama described it, it's sort of like a cellular automata. Like every pixel affects every pixel, and the physics sort of like roll through everything. And a large part of the roguelike part is just trying to not accidentally blow yourself up.
Yep, which I failed multiple times. But yeah,
right, and that's very much what the game is. But I do like that it's sort of relentlessly a Finnish game. Like Finnish, everything is like Finnish mythology, Finnish like storylines, Finnish everything, and it's just a really Finnish game made by very Finnish people.
Are you finished with this pun?
No.
You're just getting started.
But yeah, no idea. It was very well received, I think. But it's honestly, I think they're still. I think they might still be updating the game occasionally, which is incredible because it's like 3 years old by now.
Is it? I didn't even know how old it was.
Yeah, I think it was GDC nominated back in 2019. Or IGF.
Came out September 2019.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. Strange game. Very much hate or love or hate kind of game. But
I don't think I was either love or hate. I was more like, oh, okay. I moved on. I played it for, again, my typical 1 hour. That's how long I usually give a game. And then I'm like, okay, that was cool. It was a fun toy.
Yeah. Noita, I mean, I'm not going to say you should play more because it's really not the kind of game that you should play more if it just doesn't catch you. But I had a lot of fun in the sandbox of that game.
Good.
It was actually inspired by a very old Finnish game. Did you know that there was sort of like a Finnish game, right? And I think it's from like the late 90s, and it was basically a real-time version of Worms called Liero. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it had a very similar like pixels affect everything thing.
Wow.
It was really cool.
Heard of this. That's like a 98 game.
Wow.
98. Wow. Okay. Then I had it right. End of the 90s.
Wow.
I've never seen this before. I've never heard of this game before.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think in general, this was before games made it across the ocean often. So the European games history is very European and the North American games history is very North American. and it wouldn't be until a bit later that especially like smaller indie games started moving across the ocean. So you will find that a lot of the games you played, if you played indie games from that era, are not the same games I know, and vice versa.
That's so interesting. I'd love to exchange notes.
The Wikipedia of that game says it's described as the real-time version of Worms.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And the word liero is Finnish for earthworm.
Now that I don't know. I believe it.
I found it by typing liero worms. That's how I found it.
Very cool.
Speaking of old games, you know what game is not going to get old?
Which game?
Babylon's Fall.
Oh, yeah.
Square Enix is already shutting it down. It's been a bad week for Square Enix, hasn't it?
Yeah. That's really sad. I know people... I haven't even tried that game, but I heard so many people like hate on it so much. I feel so bad. Like, it's no game that deserves that much ire for just existing.
A rare Platinum Games miss, I guess. But,
so what happened? I missed this news.
Ubi is shutting the servers down. Game is not even 6 months old, so basically it didn't take off. So 6 months in, they announced 6 more months of support.
Square Enix,
Squeenix.
Yeah, they're closing the game down. 6 months old.
Yep.
Babylon's Fall is what it's called. I don't think I've played that.
Wow, it sounds like you haven't even heard of it.
Yeah, I had quite the week. I'll remind you.
No, this was like big announcements when it came out, but like it basically flatlined on arrival. It was like, instantly dead. I mean, there were articles about a journalist who decided to play it because nobody was playing it, and for a while they were the only person playing it. Apparently,
wow, what a shame! Oh, it looks like a big game.
Yeah, no, it was huge.
Lots of content.
Yeah.
And that's right. Basically, nobody played it.
It wasn't good, apparently. I don't know. I never tried it. I mean, I lost a desire after I saw so many previews saying it was bad and not worth your time.
And that's for Square Enix. That's the second bad news for the week after their new NFT news. So
I can't believe they're still going forward with that.
I mean, it's just very funny that the company that developed the whole idea of Shinra is going with Shinra, but you know,
they should just rename themselves to Shinra. There you go. Yeah.
Anyway, in terms of games, I'm still playing Stacklands.
Oh yeah,
you spoke about that last week.
Yeah,
I added it to my list, but I forgot to play it.
Very good. It's very, very good.
It gets better. It sounds.
Yeah, it has that perfect mix of like RNG and a bit of that alchemy. Like, oh, what happens if I put this and that together? And a lot of the roguelike part of it is knowledge, right? So you can make specific combinations or recipes that make specific things. So after like 6 games, I found a recipe for how to make infinite wood. And now I can just keep making wood, and it simplified the game a lot. But now I'm getting stuck further down in the game where the amount of monsters that's spawning is sort of like beating my ability to train villagers into soldiers. So now I need to figure out how to deal with that. So I'm just playing and having a really good time with that game. It's super, super good.
I need to pick that up, man. Like the way you speak about it makes me excited.
It's so good. It's so simple. It has that like card games shouldn't be that juicy, honestly. Like just the amount of like feedback that is in there is just incredible. It's a very, very good game. That is also pretty much the only game I played. I watched Rings of Power, third episode. Yeah, it's good. It feels very genuine. I will say the third episode was probably my least favorite one. There were a bunch of like big moments in it that are very important to the narrative, but as a whole, it just didn't feel very cohesive, I think. But my biggest worry with the series has been that I'm worried that a lot of the chess pieces are being positioned in the same way as Lord of the Rings. So, like here we have the king who doesn't want to be a king. Here we have the elf that goes against their people's expectations. Here we have the curious hobbit. Here we have the proud dwarf. And I know that a lot of them are archetypes from the universe, but I feel like maybe they're a little too similar. And I think the third episode finally sort of gave okay, here's how we're gonna diverge. So I'm very excited for number 4. But 3 was not my favorite. Just beautiful, really, really lovely, having a good time with it. Same thing with She-Hulk. Still just having a good time with it.
I'm loving She-Hulk as well. It's exactly what I was hoping it would be. It's just like does not take itself seriously in a way that I appreciate, and still fits into the broader MCU universe. Lots of nods, lots of jokes. It's perfect for me.
Even joking about the jokes, like it's super good.
Did you catch the Hulk one? The I don't know if I could say anything about it without spoiling it, but he did a nod.
I haven't seen any of it, so don't spoil it, please.
So I won't spoil it, but just watch like when Hulk says a specific thing, it's a nod to the old movies. I was on the floor.
I saw that. Yeah, I was laughing a lot too.
That's
super good. Super good.
Lots of fourth wall breaking, but that one was subtle and so well done. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
I think that was
once you watch
episode
it.
2 or something. So it's very early on.
Exactly. It's so good.
I'll start watching soon. I need to catch up on my Marvel stuff.
Your Marvels. Did you watch Thor yet?
The movie I did, we spoke about it on the show.
Oh, you did? Yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah. It's now on Disney Plus for those who haven't watched it. But I watched it in the theater, I think.
I did too, yeah.
We spoke about it. That movie is a swing and a miss sometimes.
Yep.
Let's see. I got new headphones, but
sounds like the third time you say this year.
Yeah, how many headphones do you get?
I really care about my headphones, and I specifically the Urbanista Los Angeles ones I had before are just really cool, and I really wanted to support that idea of making headphones that are charged by solar power.
Yeah, I remember
that's
those.
just incredibly cool. I love it. I hope to see more tech like that. It's just amazing. But Urbanista is not exactly the brand that you go to if you want really good audio. So I did something silly. I went to a headphone store, like a good, like respectable, like you can try every headset that you want. And I made a mistake. I made a really big mistake. I put on their like showcase top model, most ridiculously expensive headphones. And they're really good. So I now own headphones that are so expensive that I'm embarrassed to even talk about it.
and yet here we are.
Yeah, so we're just not going to mention the price. They're super good though. They're the if you really want to Google it, they're the Bang & Olufsen H95. They were created to celebrate their I think 95-year anniversary or something as a design brand.
What they're called again? Bang & Olufsen?
Yeah, B&O H95.
Uh-huh.
And they're basically their summit headphones. They're the best they can make. And it was just staggering in the store. I was wearing the Sony XM1000 or 5. And those are generally considered like the best headphones you can buy. And I put on the Sennheiser. Yep. Put on the Sennheiser Momentum 4, and those are meant to be like the replacement. And I bought those and I just returned them immediately because they were so disappointing. I tried the Shure Ionic 50. They were nice, but they were heavy. They were unpleasant. And then I was just browsing, and I put these on, and I hadn't even looked at the price. And just instantly, you listen to the sound, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is beautiful audio!" Right? Like all the tones are good. It sounds incredible. The treble, the bass, like everything has space. It breathes. And I was like, I want these. And then I looked at the price tag and I'm like, oh.
Would you be able to use those on a flight?
Yeah.
Like when you're flying, I mean.
Yeah, you can. You'll have to, buy the part that you need to put. So there's basically sets that convert any headset to an airplane headset. So yeah, I could do that. I just have my flying. I have my flying headphones yet. These are beautiful though. I'm super happy with them. If you have too much money to spend on headphones, I would really recommend checking them out. But really, just don't buy them. It's a terrible idea.
So you were deciding between buying this or an airplane, right?
Yeah, basically. Speaking of airplanes, my final thing for the week. I have a fun flight coming up tomorrow. My mom went on a little holiday, and she went to the east of the country. Found a little place to have some time. So no Horizon updates from her this week, which is really sad for me. But she basically there's an airplane. There's a pretty big airport nearby her, so I'm gonna fly over to her. We're gonna fly around in Germany a little bit, and then land back down, have some lunch, and then I'm gonna fly home. And it's just kind of ridiculous, and I'm very excited for it.
So lovely.
Sounds cool, man. I love
Have fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice. I'm just very excited to do more flying, and especially like somewhat more complex flights.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking every excuse I can get to do flights. Fawzi, I need you to give me an excuse to fly to you sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the problem is that you need good weather to fly, and that I can't provide.
No, especially on the direction I have to fly to get to you.
If you're gonna come north, we will rarely have good weather, so I'm gonna need to fly south and then get you to fly over.
That sounds good to me.
We can make that happen.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it. Let's talk about it. Let's email about it.
Yeah, man. Speaking of emails,
nice.
It's been a while since we've done one of those, but you can actually send us emails to this podcast at info@habibis.com. You make Osama very happy as he's reading us some of those emails. It's been a while since we've done some on the show. So, Osama, do we have some emails?
Yes, we do. Can I read one? Is that
sure?
Okay?
I think we have time for one.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Let's jump in. So we have an email from Victor. And Victor says, I've been wondering for a long time what it means to make games as a person who lives in diaspora as opposed to the country or general geographic place their culture is from. I've been in Germany since 1994, but was born in Ukraine. So the question of who I am and what that means for the things I make was always a contested field. What is your respective relationship to making games under the lens of where you are from, the lens of where you currently live, and most interestingly, is there a difference or conflict between the two? It's a good question.
Yeah. Can I take this one first?
Yeah, go for it.
I know I've just been talking for like 10 minutes straight.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Wait. So here's my opinion on this. My opinion in general is the first feeling is often a feeling of guilt or responsibility, right? And I don't think that's a healthy place to make art from, right? I think for a lot of people that are diaspora, that are from cultures that are underrepresented, I think they force themselves to want to make things that are culturally representative, and I think that is an additional challenge, especially if you're in games. It's an additional challenge on top of all the other challenges of existing in the games industry, and it's a responsibility that people that are from that aren't from marginalized or underrepresented backgrounds they don't face. So they have that as an additional advantage on top of you not being able to express your culture stories. I think where you want to get is to the point where your culture flows into your work naturally, because you're making genuine work, right? And I remember getting that question for the first time about Vlambeer. Like, Rami, you're Muslim, you're Arab. How does that reflect in your games? And I was making games about fishing with machine guns,
as they do in the Arab world, right?
Yeah, just and airplanes doing backflips. And I sat for a moment and I realized for the first time at that point that most of Vlambeer's games, when I was at Vlambeer back in the days, are in a post-apocalyptic world. And despite them being in a post-apocalyptic world, there was never a single bottle of alcohol. Because I just nixed those. As soon as those came up in art, I was like, nope, I would like to not have that. So you won't find like empty bottles or like beer or anything
ball
else,
caps as
which
currency or any of the tropes.
exactly
Yeah.
that whole thing is just isn't there. Is that the strongest expression of my culture? No. Is it an expression of my culture? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you are bicultural, right, and you're diaspora, so you grew up in one culture or feel part of a culture, but then also feel part of another culture, the want to represent both will never work, because you can't take those two cultures and then make them into something that represents both of them. You'll represent neither of them.
Mm-hmm.
What you can do is you can represent you and your specific mix of cultural influences. And it really comes down to what I was saying before. Like, you want to be sincere, you want to be genuine, and you don't want to force these kinds of things in. You'll find that they'll sneak in, that they'll happen to be there in the stories you tell, in the way you tell them, in the characters you create, in the gameplay and the premises that your players engage with. And then if you ever feel like something is really relevant or important, you can always like push on it a little, but don't make it your jumping off point. It's not a healthy jumping off point.
Mm-hmm. I'd actually have to agree. I've given this a lot of thought as well, similarly to you. And what I think it's interesting from cultures, the two things, two broad categories of things that can make their way into our games are the values and the symbols that represent those values. In general, that's what you see, that's what you feel in the games that come from you. And those things are hard to separate yourself from them. Like even if you don't think you're having an influence based on your current or your home cultures, you will have an influence because you're making decisions based on those. So for me, the way it represents themselves, whenever I had reins over narrative, which wasn't always the case. Sometimes I only had, some kind of influence over mechanics or, like level design. So it seeps in there. But the narrative is the one that's more easily felt. Whenever there was the enemies that you fight, if they had enemies, to me, they had to be like unintelligent, barely sentient. And the reason for that is because whenever they had a form of intelligence, I couldn't vilify them and make them absolutely enemies. There had to be more nuance to it, and there had to be politics involved and all these other things. Because I lived that life of Arabs being villainized in media and monsters who are just they have no redeeming qualities, and I couldn't do that to XYZ other race, whether they were human or otherwise, just because I felt so strongly against it. While it came naturally to good people who didn't have that lived experience that I did. So but that's the values part, right? And in terms of symbols, like whenever you're leaning one way or the other, the alcohol kind of fits in between both, right? But
Right.
that's going to come up too whenever you're thinking of motifs or designs or something visual. The influence from your cultures, both of them, are going to seep in. So in addition to what Rami said, that's one way to think about it, is the separation of those two things, the values and the symbols. And of course, most things fall somewhere in between.
I love both of your guys' answers. Yeah, it's such a cool way to approach this. For me, like I can only like add to what you said, because like I agree with everything that you've said, and mine is a bit also more complex. I guess just because of the different environments I've been at and the kind of different different games I've had to make. So like when I made my first game as an independent developer, as a team in Jordan, the first game we wanted to make was an RPG, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And we made an RPG, JRPG of like a turn-based RPG inspired by
Something
Chrono
small.
Trigger, something small, but it was about a group of Bedouins in a desert, and we tried to. We spent a lot of time trying to get the Game Boy Advance to do Arabic font. So like
Mm.
immediately, like because we were like an all Arab team based in Jordan, we immediately went to make a game that represented our culture directly.
Mm.
That was like the first demo or the first thing that we put together. A game that obviously we never finished for good reasons. This is why you never start with an RPG if it's your first game, I guess. But then, like throughout the course of my career, like I've been more of a professional developer. So, like making games that are not targeted for me. So there was a time in which like I was making a game in Japan, and the game was about collecting characters. And that game was never released outside of Japan, by the way, and you'll know why in a second. It's called Yurokami, and it was a co-development we did with Square Enix. You collected characters, and each one of those characters represented a different dialect from a different part of Japan. So every one of those characters that you collected, like they spoke in a different accent or dialect of Japanese, basically. Pretty hard to, and also I wouldn't say appropriate to have a part of me that's representing my culture in that game. You know what I mean? So it's almost a part of being a professional to some extent is to know, as you're making those games, when is it appropriate to represent, and when is it appropriate to focus more on the subject matter of the game that is supposed to be. And I spoke on this podcast on many different times in which like there were games that have a lot of Arabic elements within them, and how like, you know, by me being on the team, then I need to make sure that they all pass the Rami test, you know, and therefore, like, you know, because I'm involved or like part of that game, like I can add a lot of my culture, of who makes me really in a lot of my games. And ultimately, it's that, you know, as creators of regardless of the medium, we can't create what we don't know, and ultimately there's always going to be a part of us in every game that we make. It might not be a representation of culture, but it will be a representation of thought that is presented in that game in some way. Things we like, things we dislike, a representation of our values. And I think it will be very difficult for any of us to be able to put something in a game that goes directly against our values. And that, I guess, is the one way you can find or trace back like most developers into their games. And I believe that, you know, regardless of the size of the project, and sometimes could be games of hundreds of people, there's a little bit of everybody on that team in the game in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That sums it up really well. I think that's a solid answer if you consider all three of our answers that just stack onto each other like Voltron to form this mega answer.
What a question, though. I love it.
Yeah,
I never really thought about it in that way.
I loved seeing your perspectives on it because I instantly agreed with them. But again, different thought process than mine, right?
Yeah.
Also, like very different journeys. Very different and very similar in a lot of ways. I always found that interesting when we answer a question like this. How like we come at it from different angles, but from the same spirit in some way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you, Victor. Was it for sending this email? This is pretty cool. But that's all the time we have today, actually. With one question, we also went over time, and I think that there's meetings to be had and stuff like that.
Yes.
Time to put a dolly on this one. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Habibis. We'll be back again next week, inshallah, with more. But for the time being, salam.
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 That was the Habibis podcast for this week. I am Fawzi Masmar, your host for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Fawzi Masmar. My fellow Habibis were Osama Dorias, who you can find on Twitter at Osama Dorias, and Rami Ismail, who you can find on Twitter at THA_Rami. Send us your questions, stories, and suggestions via info@thehabibis.com. Intro and outro music was provided by Malik Zubayla, and the logo was provided by Ibrahim Hamdi. The Habibis is a weekly podcast about 3 game developers drinking good Arab tea, with new episodes launching every Friday, inshallah. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcasting service, or check out thehabibis.com for more information. Thank you for listening. Salam.